Hello, Facebook and world. Welcome to the Ashland New Plays Festival, our fall festival. Normally, we are gathered in a small venue in Ashland, Oregon to celebrate the writers and introduce them to the readers and community folks, supporters. This year, obviously, things are really different for everyone, but shout out to the board, the staff, the readers of the Ashland New Plays Festival who insisted that we continue on with this. And so we're very excited to be able to bring you a virtual set of events this week. So we're going to have 4 nights of shows, 5 different plays that'll each run twice. And right now we're going to have a conversation and introduce to you our 5 winning playwrights. So my name is Kyle Hayden. I'm the artistic director of the Ashland New Plays Festival. This is my 6th season. And I'm joined by one of my partners in crime here.
Hi, I'm Beth Kander. I am the host playwright for Ashland New Plays Festival. This is my 4th year in that role, my 6th year with ANPF. And while I'm very sad to not be in the Rogue Valley this year, I have so enjoyed getting to work with these playwrights who you are going to get to spend some time with and know tonight. And of course, anytime that Kyle and I get to work on anything together is a joy. So I think we're all going to have some fun on this panel this evening. And our lovely moderator, Kara, will be watching for your comments and questions. And we're going to sort of move through the conversation with the playwrights first with a few questions that Kyle and I have for them, and we'll save some time at the end when Kara will let us know what burning questions you have that we can pose to these playwrights.
Great. Before we get started, I just want to acknowledge a couple of things. First of all, I just wanted to give shout outs to all of our friends and neighbors in the Rogue Valley who are affected by the Alameda fire, who are continuing to recover. We stand with you. We're thinking of you. We're here to help. Likewise, to everybody out there struggling with COVID-19, again, it's been a tough time, but we're going to get through it together, continue sticking together. And the third thing I want to say is just to continue to point to ANPF's commitment to anti-racism, to stating that Black Lives Matter. We've got a great statement on our website, and we're taking some concrete steps to make some changes going forward. So we hope you'll take the time to check that out and learn more about what we're doing. So I think we should jump into introductions and questions, and I guess we can just kind of ask the first question as we introduce each playwright. We'll start into the 5. And so the question for you is just to introduce yourselves, but also just curious to know what kind of plays you write. How would you describe the kind of stories that you are interested in telling? So we'll start with one of our returning winners, Ian August. Welcome back, Ian.
Hi, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Sure. I am Ian August. I'm the playwright of Zero this year, and the kind of plays I write. Recently, the kind of plays I write features some kind of magic realistic element. That's something that I've been really interested in exploring over the last few years, possibly because the real world feels so strange right now that that my work tends to is moving to match the strangeness. But most of my work features strong female characters. That's really important to me. Oftentimes queer characters. That's really important to me. And my play this year is an example of that.
Great. And your play this year is?
Zero. Yes. It's a dark, very dark comedy about a bottomless pit and some reform school students who discover it. It's really, I think it's really great. You're going to love it.
We think it's really great too, and we also love it. So
yay! Thank you, Kyle.
Kari, you're up next.
Hello, I'm Kari Bentley-Quinn. The play I have this year with ANPF is HYANNIS. What kind of plays do I write? That's always an interesting question. I think that changes sometimes. And right now, I would say my plays are based in either fury or heartbreak, sometimes both. Definitely that's the case with this play. There's a lot of personal stuff in this play for me, even though it's not really about me. It's a very fictionalized version of things that have happened to me. But this play is both heartbroken and furious about the opioid epidemic in this country and what we're all enduring. And it feels even worse now with the pandemic going on and the isolation that people are experiencing, which is the thing that drives people to drug addiction, alcoholism, and that kind of thing. And so I've been kind of playing around with genres. Like my play Wendy and the Neckbeards was a super dark comedy parody. And, this is it's a fairly traditional 2-act play, but, with a little bit of a twist. So it kind of depends on the day, but I would say fury and heartbreak are my two guiding lights right now in my work.
It's a powerful 1-2 punch. So we're so happy you're here and that HYANNIS is here. Thank you.
I'm thrilled. Thank you.
Bill, you're up next.
Hello. Hi, Kyle. Thank you so much. My name is Bill Cameron. I'm from Washington, Pennsylvania, which is just south of Pittsburgh. And the play I have in the festival this year is entitled Truth Be Told. What kind of plays do I write? Well, I'm interested in crime, and I don't want that to sound like I'm out, committing crimes, but I'm interested in true crime, and I've written plays about the Lindbergh kidnapping and the Manson murders. I'm working on a play now about Pretty Boy Floyd, and in a sense, Truth Be Told is a little bit of a step away from that for me because it's not based on any specific true incident. But it does deal with gun violence, mass shootings, and that sort of thing. And so it does address, even though it doesn't address a specific actual event, it does address an epidemic that we're sort of have been going through in this country for the past 20 years or so. It's a very, I think, angry play. It was inspired in part by this notion that people were denying that these things were even happening, and the whole notion of crisis actors. I'd heard about that, and I was just outraged by it, and I started writing this play in response to that. So I also tend to write roles for women. I'm interested in female characters more than male characters, so I keep going in that direction. So anyway, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be with all these really talented people, and looking forward to the week ahead.
We're looking forward to, and looking forward to hearing your story. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Our other returning winner, David, you're up.
Well, hello. I'm David Hilder, and I'm here this year with my play, Those Days Are Over, which is really the example of how much I like to write for women, since it has a cast of 7 women and no men. But I would say the other thing about plays that I write, sort of 2 macro things that I find myself dealing with a lot. One is this sense that we're never really safe. There's never a moment where everything is totally fine, because the human condition is such that there's always some thread of something that can go wrong. The fact that, the tapestry is so complicated, tapestry of life, and a thread gone can suddenly cause things to unravel. So that's interesting to me. The other thing I would say I'm interested in is characters who are, people who change, but the change looks like it's going from here to here, but it's actually going down and around and around and then up and then here. So that's what I like to write.
It's great. I feel like that fits the play, and people will hopefully understand it when they see that. But that was really good. Thanks, man. Glad you're here. And last but not least, Grace, please introduce yourself. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay, cool. I think it's because I have really shitty headphones, so goodbye to those. What's up, y'all? I'm Grace McLeod. And my play in the festival is The Communist Revolution, a 9th grade European history project. There will be a practical demonstration. And I think first and foremost, I write comedies. I think that humor is the way that I sort of digest and make sense of whatever is happening in the world. And right now there's a whole lot of insanity. And I feel like I just sort of parse through all of that through humor. And I also write plays about young people, I think, that feature young protagonists who have so much to offer the world and have no idea how to offer it, and sort of stumble towards like offering whatever it is that they have to offer. And also, I think that pretty much every play I've ever written has a teenage lesbian protagonist. So, theme. Yeah.
It's great. Grace wins best title by far. Sorry, everybody, but she does. It's one of my favorites. So hey, we're so glad they're here. So fantastic. Beth, should we dig into our trove of questions before seeing if anybody out there has any for us?
Yeah, I definitely have one that I'd love to pose to this group, because I know that something that we've all wrestled with in this very strange year is the fact that we don't get to be in theaters, is the fact that we're not in rehearsal rooms, we're not right there with our fellow artists, which is the conversation that playwrights always want to be having. So one of the questions that I often love to pose to the playwrights is about your home theater, your go-to directors, and I feel like there's even more opportunity to give some really heartfelt shout outs to what your process usually looks like. Who do you call and say, I have the script, I need to do a table read? But I would like to invite you both to share your usual process, and also in the wake of canceled seasons and distance between artists, if you have found anything this year that still allows you to push forward. And, you know, shout out to ANPF, fine. That's, you know, if you want to take a pass, it can just be like, ANPF week is going to be great. But yeah, I'm really curious to hear anyone that you want to give a shout out to, any home theaters that you love, what your normal process of bringing a play into the world looks like, and what it looks like for you right now. Kari, would you like to kick us off?
I'm like, wow, that's a lot. Sure. I am very much a writer who rewrites in rehearsal. And I'm always discovering new things from the play by seeing actors moving in space. So one of the things I usually ask my directors is, you know, when we're done with the table read and going through the nitty gritty, like, can they just be totally on book, but just move around any way they feel? And that unlocks it for me a lot of the time. Even if we're just doing a reading, just seeing actors move around in space is really helpful for me. And that's something that we don't have. So that's, you know, it's a little weird, but you can see people's faces so distinctly that maybe there'll be some of that. I don't know. I'd like to shout out my two go-to directors, Lana Russell and Kristen McCarthy Parker, who have both developed my last few plays with me, who are the people I can call last second and say, hey, I have this play. Can we all get together in my apartment or at a space and have some wine and some pizza? And, you know, I desperately miss them, and I desperately miss working with them just because they're my gals and they're my go-tos, and they understand my work, and they both do different things very well. I miss my actors so much. But I'm really excited that my friend Samantha Rosentrader and my friend Joe Twist, who all were in 2 of the previous readings of HYANNIS, are back for ANPF. So I feel like I have these 2 women in the room with me. Sam has been one of my go-to actors from the very beginning, even the beginnings of my career. I met her like roughly, I don't know, like 8 or 10 years ago when she had just moved to Queens. And we were at the Secret Theater a lot, which sadly has closed permanently, which is a very sad situation because I've done a lot of plays there. It's in Long Island City. And it really our only, other than Queens Theater in the Park in Flushing, was kind of our like mainstay Queens Theater, and it's no longer. The other one is APAC, who are getting a new space, thank God, and they're still continuing. But, you know, I mean, it's been tough, but I'm very excited to be back in a room with people, even virtually. And my director is amazing. And, you know, it's not the same, but maybe something different will come out of it for me. And I'm really optimistic to see what that is, since I have not been in an intensive rehearsal process in 7 months. So I'm really excited to see what comes out of it for me and to learn a new way of working.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that every other artist who's going to be in the room with you is going to be so great. In the Zoom room with you is going to be so grateful to have this dedicated time and space across the distance to be working on a script, because I think everyone's hungry. And I think that these playwrights this week are going to feed a lot of people who've been looking for that artistic outlet. David, you're up next.
Wow, it's really interesting. So I do have a director I met now. It's an astonishing long, 7 years ago. That just feels like forever, when March feels like it's 20 years ago. And her name is Suzanne Egans, and I know Kyle, I know you know her. We were match made for a reading of another play of mine, and we just really clicked very fast. So she's still the first person I want to get in a room with when I'm getting a play off the page and into a room. I know a ton of really talented actors. I miss them. I really, really, really deeply miss rehearsal. I miss play practice so much, you guys. I love play practice. Interestingly, I just finished directing a play on Zoom for the first time. And oh my, the heavy lifting. And you're like, how can it be so hard? There's no blocking. But there is blocking, because I've got like 7 people on the stream. I'm like, okay, you need to direct that person this way. And they're like, that's my floor lamp. I'm like, yes, talk to your floor lamp. Your floor lamp is that character in this scene. They're like, but how do I get what I get? I'm like, you don't. You listen hard. Anyway, but I digress. In terms of writing, though, I would say this world is not something that I'm writing in response to. I feel a little stuck or frozen. So I've been working on Those Days Are Over a lot, and I just cannot wait again to start rehearsal tomorrow. And I know it will be virtual, but I just want to be with actors and a great director, Jennifer Chang, who's on board for this week. I can't wait. And I'm also adapting my former ANPF play, actually. I'm adapting that into a screenplay. And so that's the other project I have been working on a lot. But and I will just say the last shout out I'll give is to my amazing friends in Louisiana at Acadiana Rep, who have produced 2 of my plays, including Insidious Impact of Anton. And I love them. It was such an immediate love affair with the people of Acadiana Rep and in Lafayette, Louisiana. So huge shout out to them, and I miss you, and I hope that we can get together again soon.
Thank you. And much as with the shout out to Rogue Valley in general, Lafayette and Lake Charles and everywhere that's been so hard hit by storms this year. Again, it hasn't just been pandemic. There has been so much that has challenged all of us, and continuing to find community and continuing to create is so hard and so important. And we're really excited to get to share it with all of you who will be joining us for ANPF this week. Grace, turn it over to you for a couple minutes.
I feel, how do I answer this question? I feel like I've been moving around so much in the last few years that I haven't really put down roots in one specific place, theatrically speaking. But I was in Chicago for a long while, which was great. I loved being in Chicago. It's one of the most amazing theater cities in the world. And I had so many small theaters, small and large theaters there that I love to work with. And yeah, shout out to those guys. Shout out to the New Colony and Red Twist and oh God, First Floor Theater. Shout out to all the theaters in Chicago that have supported me. They're awesome. It's a great place to make plays. I moved to New York about a year, I don't know, some time ago. I'm not going to get that correct, so don't quote me on that. But I also grew up in New York, so it was sort of like a coming home moment. And it's been a strange, most of the time I've been in New York has been under this lockdown, so it's been strange, but I do feel very lucky to be working with the playwrights around the season. I'm in their virtual mentee group, which has been really great because they created a virtual group just this year for emerging playwrights. So that's been really great. And all those folks are awesome. So I feel lucky to have that. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I have so many wonderful people that I can call when I have an idea. Or who I call now to get on Zoom, and who I used to be able to invite over to my apartment and bribe them with food to read something. That's one of the things I miss most about this current time, is I can no longer bribe people with food to show up to my apartment and read something. But yes, shout out to the wonderful directors in my life, Jessica Fish, James Fleming, so many brilliant people that I've worked with who've brought my plays to life. I'm really just rambling here now, but I feel like I'm gonna miss someone. So I'm like, okay, the theaters who've supported me. Whew, I feel like I'm doing like my Oscars speech. I'm like, thank you so much. I'm like, thank the Academy and the City of Chicago and Greenway Court Theater in LA. They're awesome. I'm doing a new virtual project with them right now. A lot of people to thank is the short version, and I just feel very grateful to have so much support and to be involved in this festival, which is going to be amazing even on Zoom, and just to be able to be in the room with so many exciting artists and to work with Nicole Watson and stellar cast. So yay.
It's so great to have it. What a good problem to have. That you're like, I'm going to miss someone because I have all these people who are already invested in my work and helping out is really lovely. And I think speaks to the power of the playwright within the theater world, that it still matters to make new work and to make those connections, and to have people who support you is really terrific. I would also say, since Kari and Grace have both mentioned like bribing people with food, I call my first draft my lasagna draft, because I just invite over actor friends, have a big old lasagna because it's easy to feed a lot of people with it, and cheap wine. And that's how I usually get to hear my plays first, is going through the lasagna draft. So I look forward to getting back to all of the carbs at a first read. Bill.
Yes, thank you. I just retired from teaching about 2 years ago at Washington and Jefferson College, a small liberal arts school in what is actually my hometown, and that was really my base, my theater base for many, many years. And having left, and I wrote a number of plays specifically for my students, stage plays and some radio plays, and so it was. I loved working with them, and sort of having separated. I retired and been focusing on my playwriting, and having separated from them has been somewhat of a loss. But I was fortunate that I had a great group of actors and directors and other playwrights in Pittsburgh that I would meet with on a regular basis. And in fact, truth be told, started out as a project that I worked on there with a lot of really wonderful actors, Nancy Bach and T.S. Frank and Shirley Tannenbaum and a whole group of other actors and friends that we'd get together, and it was pretty much like what you just described. Everybody would bring food, and we'd all sit in somebody's living room and read our plays and hear scenes from what we're doing, and then we'd talk about them, and then we'd rewrite and come back. And not having that for the last year or whatever, how long are we into this pandemic now? Has felt like a great loss. Fortunately, I talked to Scott and I talk to Scott and I talk to Nancy all the time. They're still very much involved in my work, and I count on their input on virtually everything I do. And so I feel like I have a nice community of friends, very talented friends. My wife is actually an actress, a wonderful actress, and I'm able to share my work with her and get her input on it. And she's got a great ear for this sort of thing. So it's I'm in a really good place. I just wish I could be in the same room with these people instead of on the same screen with these people. So that's really what I'm missing. Although I'm really looking forward to getting started with Lavina and my cast on Truth Be Told tomorrow. So I'm just so thrilled to be here.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
As someone who also has an actor spouse, it is so great and so dangerous to have a talented and honest partner who will read
Yes,
your work
dangerous
and weigh in on it.
indeed. Dangerous indeed, but ultimately very, very, very wonderful and very, very, very inspiring. I'll say that.
100%, 100%. And I always trust, like I trust feedback I've gotten because I have gotten the, oh, that's how you felt about it? Great. I'll see you tomorrow. But it's helpful, right? We need to trust.
Yes,
we need
it
to
is.
trust.
It is. All right. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. We have one more playwright that I am looking forward to hearing from on this question front, and then we're starting to see some of your questions come in. So I'll hand it over to Kyle after Ian to start fielding some of those questions. Ian, my dear, tell us about your process.
I have no friends and no process. Nothing going on. Plays just come out. I don't know what happens, and then I send them in. Poof. I don't know. I think I'm like Grace in that I don't necessarily have like a physical home. Like I don't have one space that I rely on like through and through to like workshop everything. But I do have like a huge support system of other playwrights. I'm a member of 2 writing groups, one that I founded, I think 14 years ago, that's gone through a few different iterations. And a few of those playwrights have been like with me along the way for much of that time. The other one is that was originally through the Passage Theater Company in Trenton, and now it's called the Witherspoon Circle, and we work out of Princeton, New Jersey. The other one is one I just joined, and it is a playwriting group specifically for BIPOC and or queer playwrights. I fit one of those bills, and it is a group of really talented, really ambitious writers who are writing a lot for the here and now, and that's through the American Theater Group in North Jersey. And that's been super exciting. So I bring different pieces I'm working on to different groups, but I also have like, I don't know, I have sort of a trick. Like whenever I write a new play and I get to the point where I'm ready to sort of share it with the world, I have 2 groups of friends that I send it to. And the first group are like my playwright friends, who will read it with a critical eye and give me really good feedback and take notes for me and say, think about this, or I didn't get this, or, you know, really work it. But as I think most of my fellow playwrights on this panel know, sometimes getting open and honest feedback on your early drafts can be a little difficult to take emotionally. So I kind of have a group of people that I refer to as my sycophants. They're not necessarily playwrights. They're like, don't tell them I call them that. They are just their friends who I love and who I know love me, and they will read my work.
This is on Facebook Live, right?
Yeah.
Like live on Facebook.
Well, we'll see if they're watching. They're people who I know will love me regardless. And even when I'm writing horrible, horrible crap, will tell me how wonderful I am and how brilliant I am. Like, and I need that boost. Like I need that ego boost to work through all of the notes that I'm going to have to work through when my, like my playwright friends really sort of decimate my plays. So that's what I have to say about that. I am not pointing fingers at any of the playwrights on this panel regarding who's doing what. Beth Kander. Back to Kyle then.
Beth, do you need to defend yourself or are you good?
I never defend myself.
This is how we roll around here at ANPF. This is just how it goes. We've got a question in from Kiki D. Langley, which I'd love to hear the perspective of everybody, and maybe I'll just kind of toss it out and see who the first playwright is that responds. But I feel like you all should have something. Kiki wants to know any advice for young playwrights with all these new challenges we face in theater today, which I'll hang up and listen.
That's a big question. I'm going to be the first. I'm going to jump in. I think that's a very big question. The challenges today are innumerable, and they are challenges from outside the system, like, for example, what we're all experiencing with lockdowns and COVID and all of the natural disasters that have sort of been rocking the country, but there are also challenges within the system in the way that plays are asked to be submitted, in the way that applications are asked to be submitted, in the number of applicants that are applying to each of these playwriting opportunities, the odds are never in your favor. And so doing something like ANPF, the reason why we're all here and we're all like excited to be here is because somehow we won the lottery. It's not that we didn't do the work, but we recognize that out of 400 or so plays, 450 plays, everyone did the work. So the challenges for a young playwright today is so much of it is about honing your craft, getting to the point where you are so confident with your work that you don't mind sending it out into the universe and having people who are professionals tell you that they don't want to do it. Letting that roll off your back. I think that's my key advice for young playwrights. Do the best you can and expect nothing in return. Oh, that sounds awful, but
no, that was great. That sounded great. No, it's but it's real. It's real talk. I mean, I really appreciate that perspective. Anyone else want to chime in on this?
Yeah, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I would just say that it's sort of what we've been talking about. Is we've been talking about who is your home theater and who are your mates, who are your directors that you go to, who are the actors that you trust. What's, I think, the most important thing to do for a playwright at any stage in his or her career is to find a community in which you can develop your work, and people that you can trust to tell you the truth, and can also be your, well, I'll use the term since it's already been used, so it can be your sycophants, can encourage you, can champion you, can feel an investment in your work. I feel very lucky to have the friends that I have and the colleagues that I have who have encouraged me every step of the way, who have also on occasion told me when what I'm working on is not working, and here's why. So I think the most important thing for any artist to do, especially a playwright, because we're dealing with theater, is to find a community of people that you can trust to tell you what you're doing well, what you need to work on, and to champion your work. So that would be my key advice.
That's great. That's really great, Bill. Kari, I saw you put your hand up. What do you got?
Hi. So I'm going to go slightly optimistic-ish, which is because we're in this period of time where, yeah, there's submissions, but festivals are going to be online. Like, this is our life for we don't know how long. But I do think, especially for young playwrights, I mean, first of all, I feel for you. Like, you thought you were going to be doing one thing, and now, I mean, we all have, varying amounts of experience behind our back, but we've had productions and stuff like that, and we've gotten to really immerse ourselves in the world. And so, especially for the kids who are just coming out of school or like have just decided to become a playwright, and now this happens, like, my heart goes out to them. What I would say is there's a tremendous amount of artistic freedom right now, because we don't know what theater is going to look like. I think the gatekeeping, for lack of a better term, is changing. I think that with all of the Black Lives Matter and like incorporating people of color and like trying to have more equity, and for some reason, COVID really made the dam break for people to be like, no, this is BS and we need to change things. And I really do feel like theater is going to change, maybe not for the worse. It's just going to take a while. But what I keep trying to tell myself, because I've had a terrible time writing, so I shouldn't be giving advice to anybody. Like, I have been working on things here and there, but I mean, as far as productive work goes, I mean, if 90 Day Fiance is productive work, that's what I've been doing. But but what I'm saying is, I think right now we have an opportunity to be very free in what we write and not worry so much about trying to please a particular organization or a particular person, and just try to write from an honest place. And that's hard because for me, I'm one of those people who writes after the trauma is over, and then I can look back on it. And what we're dealing with right now is sustained trauma. And that's a very difficult thing to write through. But I feel like just take the rules and the pressure off of yourself, especially if you're just starting out, and just do what makes you feel happy. Writing isn't happy, but what makes you feel fulfilled, what makes you feel excited, whatever that is, and don't worry about what other people are doing, because we have absolutely no idea what the landscape is going to look like in a year, 2 years, 3 years.
I love that. That's really great. That's really great.
Yeah. Just really quick,
Grace, go for it.
To all my fellow young playwrights, it's hard out here. I mean, we've all said it. It's a really horrible time right now for a lot of reasons, but I think to this idea of like, it can really feel like you spend all your time like begging for acceptance by these institutions and these fancy people and the big theaters and the big festivals and whatnot. And it can feel very hard to feel like you're valid as a writer if you don't get acceptances from those places, or you don't have traction or whatever. And, I've been rejected a million jillion times in my short life, and I will continue to be rejected a million jillion times as I grow older. And I think that what Kari was saying about using this time right now to just make things without not trying to please an institution, or, just like making stuff outside of this model that we've been working under for so long, and that is so flawed in so many ways, is so exciting and so freeing. And I'm using this time myself to just make what I want to make, and finding the joy in that, because you got to have the joy if you're going to do this for the long haul. So yeah, and also using this time to just like email people. Like, people, like, what are we doing right now? People have time to answer your emails, like shoot them an email. Like, the world, it's like I learned this the hard way, and ask for what you want, that director or that artistic director or that literary manager, whoever it is that you haven't spoken to but want to meet, or you talked to once very briefly and then never spoke to again. Reach out to them now. I think people are happy to talk to people right now, and just forge those connections that will be very important and are very fulfilling. So
we're all in front of our computers anyway, right? So my email's always up. So yeah, definitely. That's really good. David, you were responding to some of that. I'd love to hear what you think as well.
I'll keep it very short because I feel like Grace just said all the things, really. But I think for this is always my advice for young writers, because I'm not one anymore. It's just keep writing. Like, write the next thing. Write the next thing. Write the next thing. I actually feel like young writers are beautifully positioned to take advantage of some of this stuff. I mean, everybody has one of these, right? So you have the opportunity to build work at your disposal. I am like hugely dedicated to TikTok, not making stuff for it, but receiving stuff from it. There's lots of opportunity to create work. And I think for young people who have grown up inside of the digital milieu, you guys are incredibly well positioned, all of you are, to just break your brains open and do the next thing. Because that's what we all want to see. That's what everybody wants to see. We all want to see the next thing. So that's all.
That's great, y'all. Thank you so much for that. Beth, you want to go to our next question?
Yeah, we have another follow-up question about whether or not self-producing is something that you have done. If you think it's a viable way to go, what are your thoughts on making your own work happen as opposed to waiting for that theater company to get back to you? Anyone have thoughts or experience on that front? Yeah, Ian. Oh, you unmuted.
I did unmute. I wasn't sure, but then I saw Kari raise her hand, and I don't want to. I went first last time. Kari, go.
Hello. I would say about self-production, do it. And I mean, right now you can self-produce a Zoom play for like barely anything, right? I mean, it's not going to cost you a lot of money. Theater producing is, I've done it for 3. I was a co-producer on my first 3 productions. What I would say is it is exhausting. It is time consuming. It is expensive. Problems that you don't even know exist happen, and do it when you are young enough to have the energy to do it, because I am now in 30 something and it is I do not have that kind of energy anymore. I think that if I had like an actual financial backer who was like, here's X amount of money to produce a thing, I'd be like, great, because the fundraising is the hardest part of it. And I think that do it while you have the stamina and the energy and the drive to do it, because it is the best way. Don't wait for people to do your work, because you'll be waiting a long time in a lot of cases. Like, people who start getting produced in their early and mid 20s are actually kind of an outlier. I don't know if that's the popular consensus, is like, oh, emerging writer means you're like 22. That's actually not true. I'm still considered an emerging writer, and I've been doing this for 15 years. So, you know, it's one of those things where if you have the time and the motivation and you can figure out how to fundraise, and there's a million ways to do it, but do it while you have the energy. But definitely do it. I think it is viable. And I think that after this is over, I think there's going to be a lot of it, because we're going to be rebuilding some stuff. Yeah. So.
Yeah, Ian, and then David, if you want to weigh in, and then I'll scroll to the others too.
I think Kari covered a lot of it. I think now is the time to think about self-production, because we're all not allowed in the same space. So everything, it's what David said before, creative solutions to these problems, right? And those creative solutions are largely gonna come from people who are really comfortable with sort of digital technology and utilizing it to their advantage. So yeah, I would say if it were 2 years ago and you had asked me that question, I would have struggled with the answer, because I've also, like Kari, I've self-produced my work, and it is the hardest thing I've ever done. And it is something that, and this is just a personal experience, and there were times during that process in which I didn't feel like the playwright. I felt like the producer, and I didn't like having to make that distinction about my role in the production. That's a personal thing for me, and other people do it really well, and I did not. But now that we're all sort of in this same Zoom boat, yeah, build something, craft something, create something, produce your own work while it is completely affordable to do so. That's my story.
I think the only experience I have with self-producing was last fall. I did put together a 1-week workshop with a single public presentation. Kari Bentley-Quinn was there, and I think what was important to me about doing that was my goals. I think if you're gonna self-produce, know why you're doing it and what you want to get from it, and that will help you so much in terms of shaping what you want the experience to be. In that case, I just wanted to see that play without hearing a single stage direction read, because I had gotten to the point of that with that piece. I just wanted to see it. So, you know, we had a short number of rehearsals in an incredible space. Shout out to the Tank. The Tank NYC is absolutely amazing. And so that really helped me going in knowing what I wanted from the experience. And that's why that actually helped me come to the decision to do it, if that's of use.
Yeah, did anyone else want to weigh in on that one?
If I may. Okay.
Yeah.
I self-produced. It's been a while now, but I didn't really start writing until I was in my 40s, and so I came to all of this rather late. And I self-produced. I was in my late 50s, and it nearly killed me. But ultimately, it was a very satisfying experience, and it led to really wonderful things for the play. The play was. I got one more chance to rewrite it. The play received some excellent press, and I was ultimately able to get the play published. And I think that was a direct result of having gone through all of the effort of self-producing my play. I've sort of retired from producing since then, because I'm much Kari makes an excellent point. I'm much too old now to. I don't have the. I'm asleep right now. As a matter of fact, I don't have the energy to really. to really do that anymore. But wonderful things came out of it. So if you have the time and the energy, go for it. I think it can really do wonderful things for you, and you'll learn a lot from the process as well.
Yeah, Bill, to that point, I was just going to add one thing that you can set as a goal is that it's an education, is what you're getting out
Absolutely.
of self-producing, so that you can then more effectively communicate to future producers and directors what it is you're hoping to get out of this, what your goal is with this play, and also have some empathy for them and how much work goes into the logistics and the marketing and the booking rehearsal space and all of the nitty-gritty logistics that are vital to getting a play on its feet. That when we have the luxury of someone else producing our play, we don't have to think about, we get to be the playwrights and think about the story and what we're trying to do, as opposed to how are we on the budget? What is going on here? Because someone always has to be thinking about that. And there's value in knowing that.
Yeah.
Great.
I just real quick, one tiny thing to add on to this. I do think in this new world of creating and making things in different ways and doing digital plays and stuff, I think a lot of people are doing very exciting site-specific work and using like outdoor spaces, which I think is really cool. And creating work for that kind of space is something that excites me. But my girlfriend, Emma Maltby, incredible actress, shout out to Emma Maltby, is producing a play right now and is scouting for sort of outdoor spaces for it. And I find that all very thrilling as we continue to not know what is happening with our indoor spaces. So.
This is great. This is great. Thanks, y'all. So I have a question for you, and unfortunately we're getting close to the end of our time, which is terrible. But I'm overjoyed because I'm going to get to spend all week with y'all, which is really, really great. And I hope that all of you out there will come and check out some of the plays, check out all of the plays. But I'm curious, you all write you all write plays. Some of you also write in other mediums, but I'm always curious as to why plays. Why do you make the choice to make something a play rather than a novel or a screenplay or a web series? But what is it about writing for theater that pulls you? Should I call on someone or should I take volunteers? I'm going to make Grace answer this one first, actually. Sorry, Grace.
I do have an answer to this. I
knew you would.
I would say that what originally drew me to plays, I started out, I've always been a writer, but I originally started out writing screenplays, and I was like so convinced that, that was it, film. And there's something, this is not the only reason I write plays, and I think that there's something very special about like the communal experience of gathering in the theater with other audience members. But specifically, I'm just really excited about sort of the way plays sound, like the audio of plays. And I know that, yes, you can listen to a podcast and like that's also an audio experience, or but for me, when I first saw plays, when I, was sort of coming into the theater, they just sung to me in this sort of oral way, in the way that film and television just absolutely does not, because it is so visual. And I totally fell in love with the sort of just the rhythm of speech and the way that it sung just orally. I don't know. It was a pleasure to listen to a play. And I got very excited about that and was like, I'm going to do this now. So that's not why I write plays specifically, but I think it is a big part of it. Yeah.
That's great. Who else?
I mean, I think like so many of us, Ian and I talked about this a little bit in our podcast conversation, acting was the gateway drug, because there's all those school shows that everybody has been in a show in school. If it was elementary school or whatever, everybody's done that. And for some of us that stuck, not so much the performing part, but the being grounded in the live experience with other people. And I think why I like to write plays is that I want to be able to be in a room with it happening live. I just think there's that thing about shared air, when we get to share air again, by the way, which, you know, I'm knocking wood even as I say it. But shared air, it's you know, that there's a fourth wall that is not a wall. And it's like that's mystical to me. And that is the thing I want to keep going back to again and again and again. Also, I really like to write people speaking. And I don't so much like to write long descriptions of what the camera is telling me I'm looking at. That's actually really hard for me. So that's why plays. Yeah.
Yeah, just to jump off what David was saying, I've recently begun screenwriting. I've TV and film management. I'm working on a pilot, and it's kind of excruciating. Like, it's so hard for me. I get very bored. Even with prose, I can do short stories are fine, personal essay, but when you get me into like, and I'm actually going to do the NaNoWriMo, like the write a novel in November thing. I mean, depending on how the election goes, I don't know how that's going to go, but we'll see. But I feel like I get very distracted because, like you said, I like to write. I think Grace said, I like to write how people speak. I really love writing people talking to each other, but my two peak aesthetic experiences in my life have been from live music and from plays. And I think they have the thing in common is that when it's great, it's the greatest thing ever. And there's no comparison to it. And the aliveness of when the audience is all like super into it and it's just working and the actors are there. And like, it's it's an indescribable thing. And it's like seeing a really good music set. That you just can't really put into words what it is about it, but it's a communal experience. But I will say, I mean, when that is the opposite and you see a really bad play or you see a really bad concert, it's excruciating because there needs to be that confluence of audience and performer and the vibe of the people in the room and the quality of the work that all kind of has to come together at once. And there's something so exciting for me about that when it works in my own work and other people's work that I'm like addicted to it. And I love theatricality and I love finding solutions to big problems on stage. Like, oh, I want a tidal wave to wipe out this whole stage. How do we do that? And see what people come up with. And set designers and lighting designers and sound designers come up with the most amazing stuff that I never would have even thought of. And like, I just really love that problem solving aspect of it too.
Can I jump in?
Please.
I've been doing theater for 50 years. So when I started writing, there was it's sort of the way I view and experience the world. So to try and write in some other form just didn't seem viable. I mean, I've written short stories and I've played around with it, but I always come back to playwriting, and that's where I really apply myself. And I think a lot of it has to do with, I'll go back to an answer I made earlier, which is all about community and the communal sense of being in a theater and being in a live place with actors, and whether you're in the audience or on the stage or backstage or wherever. But the notion of working as a community to create a work of art is just still the greatest experience that I can imagine. And every experience, even the failed ones that I've had moments of real joy attached to them. And I feel that joy every time I'm involved in the process. And that's why I think I feel that we're going to be missing something in this week as we go ahead, because we're not all in the same room. But I also know that we'll still have that shared experience, that communal experience of working together on a piece. And it is the greatest feeling in the world. And it's what keeps me coming back to it. And I don't think it's the same kind of experience you're going to get if you're writing a novel, if you're writing a short story. I don't know. I've been doing theater for so long that I can't imagine trying to express myself in any other way. That's just how I'm made at this point in time.
That's great. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Ian, you want to add anything to this?
Sure. I agree with everything everyone said, but I think that there's something that calls back to a lot of our childhoods about sort of the freedom of imaginative play, being someone else, and then maybe at the drop of a hat having to be someone else, because you're not allowed to play this person, you're allowed to play that person, or your brother tells you that he's going to be the superhero and you have to be the villain, and you just have to kind of jump into that role. And I feel like so much of playwriting is me being able to just be everyone all the time and make shit up and see what happens. It is I am acting every part when I am writing a play, and I am also directing, and I am also designing. I am creating a world around me using nothing but my brain and my words. And there is nothing more exquisite than that.
That's
I feel
really
like I might
lovely.
cry now.
Y'all are real good with words. Not surprisingly.
What?
Right?
Talking real pretty there, Ian August. So before we move to wrap what has been a truly lovely conversation this evening with our ANPF 2020 winning playwrights, I want to make sure that we hear a little bit about the plays and remind everyone that kicking off Wednesday night and running through Sunday, there are going to be 10 readings of 5 really great, really different shows. So playwrights, I would like to give each of you the 30-second opportunity to remind everyone the name of your play and why you think it will speak to audiences. So in this roulette of who should go first, this time let's start with David.
Curse you, Beth Kander. My play in Ashland New Plays Festival 2020 is called Those Days Are Over. It's the story of the 5 McKillop sisters, who are all Gen X women, and they gather after the death of their mother. Gosh, I think this play is, ooh, a little choked up, sorry. I have written several plays in which there's a deceased parent or a missing parent or something, or there's some issue with that. And I think in some way I am preparing myself for when that will come to pass. My parents are both alive, but I think that's part of what I'm doing. So anybody who has or has had parents, I think will have something to grab onto. Thanks.
Thank you. Would anyone like to go next, or would you like me to volunteer someone to go next? I'm going to volunteer Bill to tell us about your play and why we should see it.
All right. My play is entitled Truth Be Told. It's a two-hander, 2 women. It is the story of a woman whose son was the perpetrator in a mass shooting incident, and she is being interviewed about the experience by a true crime writer. The woman is clinging to some hope that perhaps her son didn't do it, and is trying to convince the true crime writer that perhaps there's another way of looking at this story. And it's the encounter. It's sort of a journey to the truth of what really happened that takes place between the 2 women. I think the play matters because it's dealing with a crisis that we're going through in this country right now, the issue of gun violence, these mass shootings, how awful these things are happening. And I think it matters because it's about the truth. And what is the truth, and how do we get to the truth, and how do we use or manipulate the truth to serve our own ends, which I think is a very important issue right now, and I think will continue to be an issue for us for years to come. And finally, it's about being a parent and the joy and the pain and the anxiety of what it's like to have responsibility for another human life. And as a father of a son whom I love more than anything, I just tried to address some of my own issues regarding that particular responsibility. So, truth be told, I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Truth be told. Grace.
My play is The Communist Revolution, a ninth grade European history project, parentheses, there will be a practical demonstration. This play is about capitalism and white fragility and feeling hopeless and going camping in the backyard and feeling like you have to be right about absolutely everything, because if you admit that you're wrong, then you have nothing. And that is a very scary thing to face. It's about reckoning with our privilege and other people's privilege and having hard conversations and making mistakes. And it's a comedy, so hopefully you'll laugh. That's the goal.
So as you can hear, great title. Otherwise, nothing going on in that show. Nothing to see here, folks. Might as well skip the Communist Revolution. Just kidding. Everyone needs to see the show. Ian.
My play is called Zero. It is a narrated magic realistic piece about a group of reform school teenagers who discover a bottomless pit in the forest behind the school. Yeah, it's funny and it's dark, and there are a ton of curses. I think there's more F-bombs in this play than I have in all of the rest of my plays combined. But teenagers, what are you going to do? It's about empathy and addiction and self-perception and high school dynamics and violence and trauma and the way we respond to trauma and the way we're treated when we don't know how to respond to trauma. It is all the things, and it's electric. It's a fucking great play. Come and check it out.
Whole bunch of F-bombs thrown into a bottomless pit. Zero by Ian August. Kari.
My play is called HYANNIS, and it's about a woman named Fran and her daughter Michelle, who run a souvenir slash fudge slash all the things store in Cape Cod in small town Hyannis. And Michelle's son Tommy comes home from his second round of rehab for opioid addiction, and it's sort of the story about this family and how they cope with it and the financial and emotional ramifications of having to support an addict. It's so hard to talk about this place, so personal, but like, even though I didn't grow up on Cape Cod, by the way, I grew up in coastal Connecticut, which is, you know, in kind of like the same wheelhouse, but it's not my life. As a child of two addicts, I really struggled with writing a family play, because anytime I would try to write a play about my own family, it was too close for me. And so it was just too difficult. So it was really great to be able to write the women in my life growing up, which are these strong, sturdy New England women who raised me. And I realized much after the fact that, oh, now like David, I'm gonna start crying. Look at this. I wrote that relationship between Fran and Michelle is the banter between my mom and my late grandmother. And I didn't even really realize it until like after the first public reading. And I was like, oh, I tried to recreate this time in my life when things were a lot easier. I mean, at its core, I think this play is like about the devastating cost of addiction and how it can ravage a family without exploiting the addict, because I feel like too often when there are plays about addicts, it winds up with somebody like collapsed with a needle in their arm, and it's very voyeuristic for the downfall of the addiction. But the devastation of addiction is actually much quieter and much more insidious than that. But it is funny sometimes. Good stuff happens. It's not like, it's not a dirge, but you know, I mean, I think it's, like I said before, like this play is, you know, it's a lot of my heartbreak, but it's also an homage to people that I love very much. And I love Cape Cod. I've spent a lot of time there and I kind of get it. I mean, give me a beach town, I'm there. Like my plays, David knows this, so many of my plays are about water, being by the ocean. It's like my power source. So yeah, I hope people enjoy it. And I think that now in this country with the numbers, I think everybody knows someone who struggles. And so I hope that people can see that and take something away from it that they can relate to, that maybe makes them feel less alone. I think that's the ultimate goal of the play.
Yeah, preach. And I think that's why we do theater, right? I think that's one of the great things about the communal nature of it, is bringing people together in some way, shape, or form. And, you know, one of the things that I love about this fall festival is that it brings a community together. It brings a community of people in the Rogue Valley, and then the kind of broader theater community really focuses on Ashland for a week. So I'm so glad that we're able to do this. Congratulations to the 5 of you. We're so happy to have you. They start rehearsal tomorrow with really amazing cast and 5 wonderful directors. These 5 people are world class, and we're so thrilled to be able to have them with us to kind of help shepherd and guide these plays through. So I hope you'll check us out starting Wednesday night. Truth Be Told is the first one up. That'll be at 7:30 Pacific time. It's 10:30 East Coast, but don't worry, there'll be an earlier showing if that's too late for you. So you can check us out at ashlandnewplays.org for all the information. And one request, doing these plays, right? Ticket prices don't cover it, of course. So anything that you can do to support the mission of this organization, of these playwrights, we'd really appreciate. So feel free to go to ashlandnewplays.org/support. And you can find out how to get involved, whether that's becoming a reader, whether that's donating money, becoming a sponsor, becoming a member. We'd love to have you aboard. So for myself, for Beth Kander, for all these wonderful playwrights, and for the board and staff of the Ashland New Plays Festival, we'll hope to see you later this week. Hope you all have a good night. Stay safe out there. Thanks, y'all.